We are a photonic light. We are really divine beings. So I've been saying that for a while, but now we get to experience it. And also I see a very radical shift between what we used to consider ourselves as spiritual beings. A lot of people felt that they were niche and they were afraid of talking about this. And now they're talking freely about psychic phenomena and ET experiences and all kinds of weird things that now feel very mainstream. So that is a very positive shift, I believe. And also those who are working in service to humanity, in the sense that they want to participate into this new consciousness to help, they are being favored. And so they get to talk about their experiences and their studies, and everybody's getting more excited.
Welcome to the Infinite Life podcast with me, your host, Katish Haberfield. I'm really proud and pleased to have returning guest Lalitha Donatella Riback with us. And I'd like to reintroduce her because there are people that are new here and just tuning in for the first time. Lalitha Donatella Riback is an international best-selling author, transformational mindset coach, entrepreneur, and spiritual mentor. She's a researcher of human consciousness who has studied the Vedic culture of the yogis and sages of India for over 30 years. She holds a BA in Vedic arts and science. Lalitha guides her students to their highest human potential and has created Streamlab, a coaching business that offers transformational courses for a miraculous life. Her international best-selling books, studies with renowned mentors like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Pillai, and also her participation in Dr. Joe Vitale's movie Zero Limits, which won 27 awards and had 40 nominations globally, have established her as a respected authority in the field of spirituality for the new golden age. Thank you, Lalitha, for coming back and joining us once again.
Thank you, Katisha. It's always a pleasure. And you are one of my favorite podcasts. You're just my favorite person. You're authentic, as I was saying before we started. And so I get to say how things are really spiritually and materially on the earth plane, according to the Vedic perspective. If you don't know what the Vedas are, they're ancient scriptures, but they're very scientific, if you will. And they are not sectarian, they are non-denominational. So it's not a religion. It's really ancient information and wisdom about ancient civilizations, particularly the one in India, before India became a modern country with a lot of problems. It was a leading country for the highest wisdom. So I'm very happy to bring that here, and I have good news for everyone. Yes, I'd like to talk about that.
Perfect, because last time we talked with you, you just launched your book about the golden age of goddesses. And we talked about in the previous podcast how the energy was changing and how it was good news for people, all people on earth, not just females, but males as well. And so bring us up to date with the energy that has begun to come in and what we need to be aware of, because it's what you're a specialist in.
Yes, and that's what I love too. So what I found out, that time has changed on the earth plane, and I've been announcing that through planetary transits, but also as a concept, as a shift, collective shift that will lead to literal ascension. So not literally we rise physically, but our frequencies will rise, and we may find ourselves totally changed, that the old problems don't matter. We are creating a whole new life, and we vibrate so fast that we can consider ourselves to be either in the fourth dimension, which is a smaller shift, or even at the fifth dimension, when there's no separation between you and the divine. And whatever you do manifests very fast. And we've had some help, believe it or not, even from AI. And do you know how, for example, you used to have a question, used to get on Google or other platforms to find out more about that topic? I've done a lot of research for my books because they're both about ancient civilizations and lost civilizations, and also archetypes who have changed the human mind across hundreds of thousands of years. But what you find now with AI, that you write a question, and before you're even done typing and sending, you already have the answer. So that is just something that maybe shocked you in the beginning, and then you slowly got used to it. But nothing happens without our participation. So our brain is far better than any quantum computer. And with 86 billion neurons in the brain, and also the 100 of trillions of synapses that we're experiencing all the time, we are learning that time doesn't exist. So before maybe last year, we used to wait a year to find the perfect house. Now we expect to find it right away, the way we use ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, etc. So immediately we expect to find it, and we are manifesting super fast. So I know people, like even my family, like I waited so long to have, say, in my 20s, my first house. My parents had to help me, etc. And now my children, very quickly, they have manifested their own homes, and they have great opportunities for new business and jobs. But I'm not talking only about my family. I see my clients and I see my students. And also I see what my teacher, my spiritual teacher, who's Dr. Pillai, has been telling us, like, there's no time. We have imagined it. And we fancy ourselves in a physical suit. And we're not. We're a photonic light. We are really divine beings. So I've been saying that for a while, but now we get to experience it. And also I see a very radical shift between what we used to consider ourselves as spiritual beings. A lot of people felt that they were niche and they were afraid of talking about this. And now they're talking freely about psychic phenomena and ET experiences and all kinds of weird things that now feel very mainstream. So that is a very positive shift, I believe. And also those who are working in service to humanity, in the sense that they want to participate into this new consciousness to help, they are being favored. And so they get to talk about their experiences and their studies, and everybody's getting more excited. So I don't know if you've noticed that, Katisha.
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly in terms of where we focus our consciousness, and we not just experiment or try or test something out, but when we say that I have heard this person speak of how miraculous doing this one thing is, say, for example, a Vedic mantra, then there is no time between when we speak it and when it creates traction in our life. For example, I know that when I did a private consultation with you, you talked to me about the importance of certain things in my life, and I put them in place through using mantras. And for somebody like me who has the ability to see spiritually, I could then immediately, when chanting those mantras, see the being and see them physically in my room with me.
So you're using your open third eye already.
Yeah, so that was, for me, was miraculous, because I used the mantras, and then I looked at Dr. Pillai's YouTube, which has lots of interesting things as well, and he keeps everybody well updated. But for example, Lakshmi guided me towards the Shrim Brazi mantra.
Wow, yes, that's a very powerful sound.
Yes. And I don't know how to pronounce, I know I have written it down. It's kind of something like Warani.
Varagi. She's an archetype who is very fierce and very protective of the human race. She's supposed to own the earth plane. So she's the goddess who handles manifestation of material gold, all the gold, jewelry, more than jewelry, gems, precious gems, everything that is underground and also over the ground belongs to her in the Vedic tradition. So she will be the spouse or of one of the incarnations of Lord Vishnu, who is supposed to be the archetype protecting the earth plane. So we spiritual people have suffered a lot because we felt that it was a stigma to want things. So we were supposed to be renunciate, celibate, miserable, and secluded. And it turned out it was the opposite. For example, there is a lineage of yogis called the Siddhas who have the siddhis. I often talk about them because they inspire me. So we have all these studies by Harvard, Yale, etc. with these yogis. They stop their heart. Like imagine suddenly you decide, okay, now I'm not going to breathe for a month or barely breathe enough to maintain life. And they can go underground, no problem. So all yogis have had this ability to totally control their autonomic nervous system, and they can manifest very fast. So they are runaway rebels. They are ready to change at any moment. That's how they became so powerful, and not to control others, just to control their own consciousness. And they can leave their job, their house, their relationship at a moment's notice. And they don't care. They just are so dedicated to their growth. And so that's not for everybody, right? But it gives you a lot of freedom. And when we have freedom, then we have better relationships. We have more love in ourselves, and we have less competition, which is plaguing the world. Everything we do is about competition. It's not even friendly like it used to be in games, like the Olympics when I used to watch them as a child. There's partisan, they're all like for every country cares only about their own team. And it wasn't like that. We used to enjoy seeing other people win too, like when they were better. And so there's an acceleration of egotistical qualities. And at the same time, there's huge ascension wave and a huge awakening. And then we're realizing this is not working anymore for me. I don't want to hate that person because it's from that country and that's their accent. I was always like this, pretty much, like since my college years. I studied 9 languages. At university, I studied like several, including German, but I don't remember it very well. And a lot of literature because I wanted to know about people and what they want and how they live, etc. And I traveled a lot worldwide for a while. So the point is that we're all the same. And once we choose to focus on what makes us unique, which is our divinity, we cannot give that up, right? So we will not accept the miserable job, or we will not accept to be stuck in a relationship that makes us sad and out because we don't want change, or we're afraid that we have made a commitment and that's forever. We're not supposed to destroy our souls. Our soul is what makes us unique, special, and at the same time, everybody has that. So we're not supposed to get stuck, and we're supposed to fulfill our wishes to have that 200% life where there's no separation between material and spiritual. We have created that from our limitation and our duality. It's a tendency we have, and that's so normal. But once we realize, no, it's the same level of spirituality manifesting a mansion or manifesting a hut. God doesn't care if we live in a hut or in a mansion. It all depends on how our consciousness is, how benevolent we are, how compassionate. Compassion is going to be the super intelligence. Finally, we're seeing a shift. People understand that if you're not compassionate, 70% of the brain is not working. So because we are born loving. I remember once I fell when my eldest child was 2 years old. And the first thing he did was showing his pain for me and caressing my ankle. And he sat on the stairs with me, and his hands were on my ankle to try to make it better at 2. So how did we lose that? How do we laugh when somebody falls? We have gone far away, and now there's a huge return to love and compassion, and we're understanding there's no other way to evolution other than this. You cannot hate everybody and have a fantastic life. So we're all in this together. And also, you'll notice it can be a little scary sometimes because there's a lot of change very fast. The borders are like very fluid now, and we see a lot of different populations arriving everywhere in different countries. And that will require also some flexibility and compassion. So I'm not welcoming certain things, and I want to talk about politics, so some things shouldn't be happening, like crime, etc. But I'm saying we need to get out of our comfort zone and start embracing everybody. Yeah, that's a very big shift we'll make. We'll be more loving. And what I see in the world right now is that we have Uranus. Uranus is a force of change, explosive even, and it's also connected with our careers. We're supposed to be preeminent in our field. The first thing I learned from my teacher was, and he's also the same teacher that Wayne Dyer had, and he taught that success is a requirement. It's not an option. So I thought, oh, so there's no stigma. I'm actually supposed to be successful. And when I was younger and in mainstream careers, it was easy for me to be successful. But then when I became more spiritual and I began teaching meditation or yoga or Reiki or Ayurveda, I don't know, or even Vedic astrology, I felt, oh, success is really vanity. I had some confusion. And then I realized, no, there's no stigma. There's no separation. You can have whatever you want to fulfill your dharma or your path, your purpose. We're supposed to be happy and successful. We do a better job. And also there's no time and you're not supposed to wait. But now I get to experience it. Just how many times in the past year or so have you written a question and now the answer is already there? That is shifting our conception of time. And literally we're changing, right? We are creating new neural paths. So I'm not a neuroscientist, but this is available information. And mantras keep us also balanced in the body. So we are not supposed to neglect the body. It's a gift. We're supposed to use it very well. And mantras can be put in the body. Like, for example, the yogis visualize the mantra in the eyes and in the forehead, in the back of the brain, the parietal lobes, and the occipital lobe, and the midbrain, which is called various, depending on the part, and also the pineal gland. So that is very powerful. And there is available science. Like, for example, recently on my teacher's suggestion, I went to ChatGPT and wrote, how does Om affect my body neurologically, biologically, and physiologically? And also tell me about the physics involved. I cannot even repeat what I found. There was so much. And then I kept asking questions and more came out. So that may give me a further shift in how I see the mantras. Really, they're not cutesies, little games for children that want to play Indian yoga. No, really, those are super sounds the yogis heard in the cosmos. Yogis are never in the body. They go easily into altered states and they can travel throughout the galaxies. I've had the experience several times, believe it or not. Other people I know have too. So we're supposed to gather information from the higher sources that are benevolent. They're here. Yes, so there is, I believe, one infinite creator and loving being we call God or universe, etc. We have billions, trillions of gods. Call them shiny being, really. The Vedic term is shining being. So not God, so my God is better than yours, all this nonsense we're doing now. They're really higher beings who are there for us. So you have experienced Lakshmi or Ganesha or Lalita Tripura Sundari was a great inspiration for me. I'm very close to her because I've seen her in my travels and she took me throughout the galaxies through the book.
Yes, yes. And it was really interesting that you talked about, for example, this morning before we started, I have been starting to do some voice training for myself. to launch myself on speaker platforms. And one of the recommendations in the book I was reading was to stand in front of a mirror and see how your posture and your voice changes according to the different mantras that you chant. And this was a book that I picked up from a mainstream art gallery. It was just in the foyer there. And
Gallery.
And so I saw how when I use Om, as in Om, versus Aum, A-U-M, so to see how it projects my voice differently and how I can tap into the different perceptions of how I wish to perceive myself, but also how it opened my airways and gave me more confidence, and there were no questions lurking in my mind. When you turn to
the yogis tell us that, yes. So the way you breathe, that's the way you think. And we can get ourselves into a state of panic. Just try to do this, right? People who walk with their shoulders forward, with head down, they're usually thinking thoughts of, it's over, there's nothing I can contribute, or they've had some very scary experience and they're trying to recover from the trauma. And sometimes older people, unfortunately, they're so disempowered in our society so many times. They feel, oh, now I'm retired, I'm finished. No, says who? The yogis don't retire. You don't have to stop having a fantastic life at any age. You're supposed to live a vital, pleasant, enjoyable experience of the earth plane until the time you decide whether you turn into light or die and come back. It's really up to you, and you have a lot of freedom. There's not God on the cloud telling you what to do. We have imagined that, and it's nonsense.
And what other exciting things can you see that is happening for us this year as spiritual practitioners and people who are guiding and shepherding people through what the earth plane is experiencing?
Yes, so the turmoil will be there. We cannot deny it. We cannot gaslight. There will be a lot of turmoil. Look at the shifting populations, the shifting economies, and the money that used to be an idea paper. And things will shift probably there. I can see from the planets. For example, Saturn in Pisces. So these are not archetypes. They are literally radiations. Try to stop a planet like Saturn. How huge is it? So if we're affected by rain, by a full moon, by the sun, these things we understand. What about Saturn? Jupiter, it's the biggest planet. How many moons does Jupiter have? I don't remember, maybe 90 something. I think 93. I did some research once. So how could you stop these planets from having influence on your mind, on your physiology, on your life? We can't avoid them, and we need to understand what they mean. This is super science that got lost. It used to exist, and astronomy was connected to astrology. Astrology was the super science, and then astronomy was the explanation of these phenomena. Jupiter moving to this area and causing these shifts in weather, in crops, in abundance, how people thought about buying gold, etc. That is still true. And Saturn in Pisces is making us more compassionate, but it's affecting economies in a serious way that we have to stop doing the same thing that we've been doing because it's not going to work. And it also affects us in the sense that we're understanding, unless we have a meditation practice, our minds will be always pulled here and there, and that's wisdom, because Saturn matures the soul. So there's a lot of nonsense out there about Saturn being used by bad people. They're planets, they're pure, and they have sometimes very bad effects on our weather and on our mindset, etc. But Saturn didn't do anything wrong. I know we shouldn't imagine things. Is an archetype, yes, but it's also a being, a consciousness. And the planet is shifting the way we understand money, the way we understand others. And also it's making us more disciplined and going inward. How many times have you had a difficult conversation and then you realize that you're reacting, you're being triggered, and you're about to explode, and you have to go back? And so Saturn is making us more disciplined. Structures are changing, everything is changing. And then we have Jupiter, which is the planet of the highest wisdom and also positivity and wealth and gold, etc. And now from Gemini, it expands the Gemini energy. What is Gemini? Communication, codes, right? And also the way we decode information. Ancient civilizations, now everybody knows at least a little bit about Atlantis, Egypt. New discoveries in Italy, an Italian team found out that under the Great Pyramid, there may be the ancient libraries and other things that we had dismissed as myths. So a lot of things are shifting very fast, and Jupiter is helping with that. And we can't deny it, it's happening. And so we are flooded with all this information about modern archaeology that is not mainstream because it is able to reveal a lot of things that were taboo. So civilization is supposed to have started with the Sumerians, but no, then we found cities that are 20,000 years old or 30,000 years old and lists of kings for 100,000 years. So where did that come from? So now we're understanding ourselves better. And once we find out more about the past, what I've learned in India is extraordinary about who we are. And so we will not get stuck in what one academy said, what one scientist is assuming, because they're constantly changing the science. If they're pure, if they're observing, repeating, then they actually can see the truth. If they're stuck in academic dogma, they cannot see the truth. And maybe some people don't want to lose their jobs or they're afraid of change, I don't know, but they want to go into it. So we're supposed to keep our eyes open. Our intuition is powerful. It's the first decoder. Gemini is also coding. So AI, the technology we're using as helpers, we are the masters. AI is supposed to serve us, not the other way around, right? And again, how I just learned that how many watts does the human brain need? 8. And how many watts does ChatGPT need? 2 billion? I don't remember. Something staggering. Do you know those figures?
No, but I can understand that.
It's pretty much like that. Yeah. So we're so much better. Even the quantum computer, we don't even have a quantum computer that is really available to us yet. And we already know that we're better. So we're supposed to become fully sovereign. I never get tired of this, to have full freedom to choose and to choose the right thing. So do you want to choose the paradigm where you retire, get old and die? Or do you want to choose the paradigm where you're the divine and you do what you want with your body and life and also soul? Because we cannot ignore that we're not flesh and blood. So I see that a lot of people who couldn't even conceive these ideas, and now they're comfortable talking about it. And so we're definitely ascending in many ways. We're awakening, at least awakening.
And Lalitha, in my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that if you understand that there are so many benevolent beings of light, that if you use ChatGPT and ask it a question and you want further information and insight, you can always use your consciousness to connect to the quantum beings, these beings in the light, to get that next level insight, can't you? You can use your own spiritual skills to do that and say, here's my humanness connecting with the technology, and then now let me infuse the divine into this wisdom. And then that...
Absolutely. You will have to steer the direction that you like. So being intuitive, you know how it works. You put your consciousness on something, even without trying, information will come. That's what I did with Think and Receive Miracles. And also with the goddess book, the new Golden Age goddesses, information was coming to me just because I was thinking about that topic. And I thought I was delusional for a while, I have to honestly say it, because I'm also hard-nosed. I was raised to be an intellectual. So I went to check every piece of information that came, and it turned out to be absolutely accurate according to historians or whatever records we have in the minutest details. So I became more encouraged, then I continued. And then finally I asked a question. I asked Lalitha Tripurasundari, who is, I consider her the divine feminine for me. And I said before I went to sleep, I need to know, am I imagining this or it's memory? So I went to sleep. I think I talked to you about that last time, but it's good to refresh our minds that these beings exist. So I went to sleep and I woke up in what we call Brahma Muhurta, right? It's around 4. So the veils are very thin at that time, or to use a current, your third eye, your intuitive centers in the brain are wide open. There's no distraction, no one else's consciousness to distract you, no noise, no work to do, no tasks. And I was thirsty, so I decided, should I meditate? I was still sleepy, so I said, let me drink some water. So I just was drinking some water and I heard from the middle of my bedroom, memory. I thought, oh my God, who is here? I turned on the lights and nobody was there. But even before I turned on the lights, there it was bright moon day, maybe not full moon, but pretty bright, the bright phase of the moon. So I wondered, I was a little scared. I said, what does he mean? And then I was too tired, I just went back to sleep. And the next morning, as soon as I opened my eyes, I thought, oh my God, I asked the question. She said memory. So then I started to analyze, what did she sound like? Incredibly powerful, not angry, very benevolent, very beautiful feminine voice, but powerful. You couldn't argue with that voice. There was so much authority. Memory, meaning let it go. Trust that. That's it. And I thought, okay, she said memory, so it's true. And from that day on, I stopped doubting, at least 90% of the time. And now I just trust what my intuition. After all, I try to rationalize. I was intuitive as a child. I was maybe even psychic. And then, of course, in the years of puberty, and you start thinking about other things in school and university and jobs, etc., you get a little distracted from your intuitive centers, right? You trust your eyes and you have to do some work, etc. But when I had my children, when they were born, I became even more psychic because I guess it was to protect the species. So this is not anything. It's just literally we have these abilities. We either use them and they're very protective of us, or they help us to protect our species at the very least, and also to guide us in everyday life. So I learned to trust that. For example, one night I had this dream. I was nursing my first child and he was maybe a few months old. And I had this dream that there was somebody who looked like a homeless man, dressed in navy blue, dark clothes, and he had a lot of hair on his face, like a long beard, and looked disgruntled. And he came into my car and he started to drive my Volvo SUV at that time. That was my car. And I was sitting in the back with my baby and I said, who are you? And I got scared and I woke up. Then that day I went down. I lived in a house with 3 floors. So I went downstairs and on the first floor, there was a sofa, a sitting area with sofas and chairs. And I see this same man sitting on that sofa. And he was drinking from a can, a Coca-Cola, zero, I forget, whatever it was, Diet Coke. And I said, who are you? And I freaked out and I ran upstairs to the 3rd floor. I grabbed my child, locked myself in and called my husband who was at work. And within 5 minutes, the police was there. My husband was there with the 4 men from his manufacturer. So I felt very protected. And so it turned out that the nanny, the woman who was helping me when my baby was born, had left the door open, and this man wandered around and walked in and even helped himself from the refrigerator and found some drink, some cold drink, and he was drinking. So this is an elementary way of how intuition works, right? It protects you. But there's so much more. You'll understand your past. Why are you this way in this life? You could look into past lives, but as long as you don't get distracted and miss on this opportunity of a fantastic life on the earth plane, where you're fully conscious, understand why you're this way, and where you're supposed to go, not in the past. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you live. I lived in South India, in Tamil Nadu, in Kumarikandam, in Lemuria. I remembered all that. It seemed crazy in the beginning, and now I take it for granted. It's part of my experience on the earth plane, and also on other planets, I believe, because I've had some visions that I was not on the earth plane. So what do we do with this? We use it for integration and also for not doubting ourselves anymore. If you have a gut feeling, I just said that in Katie's podcast for her Soulful Valley podcast. If you walk into a room and you have a gut feeling that something is wrong with the room, trust it. It's always true. It never failed me. And vice versa, when you have this feeling like in the heart or even in the gut, because there are a lot of neurons. I believe there are more neurons in the gut than in the brain, if I'm not wrong. But I did some research on that. My scientific mind is not very strong. I get impatient with it. But anyway, so we have a lot of neurons in the gut. Trust the feeling. It's very protective. Absolutely. And it can help you on a small level, like somebody's talking to you and your body, mind, and soul are telling you the opposite. So just go away. Just say, okay, I have to go. And just go away. Or it can be a very good feeling that you feel this person is going to help you. It's going to be wonderful. For example, when Katie messaged me on LinkedIn, that was the first time I ever seen her. And I thought, oh my God, who is this lady? She sounds so good. And then she left me a message. And then I realized, oh no, she had sent me a message a month ago and I never replied. And I wanted to talk to her because she had this podcast. She was inviting me. I was like, oh no, I almost missed an opportunity. And I started to get all tingly. And that's usually the sign. It happened to me when I met Dr. Deepak Chopra, that I felt I was tingly. I knew it would be good for me. And I studied Ayurveda. It was wonderful. And with Dr. Pillai. So your body's telling you, why ignore it? You know better than most people, because you're also psychic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think also that what I'm bringing through and noticing is that when you know somebody is not in your best interest, but perhaps they're a friend from childhood or a relative or something like that, that's where we have to trust that instinct, but really use our thoughts to send them that love so that we bless them and then say, I bless you, but I can't have you as part of my intimate journey. If I need to listen to you in your downcast vision, I will, but I'm here to help you on a high level, so I'll send you good thoughts. And we can coexist because neither of us has the absolute truth, but I'm going to go with my vision of exactly what you said, of working with higher consciousness and deities to bring about all these things that have been predicted for the earth, which is a peaceful place, which has love and support and the things that we haven't seen in the past. And we wish them well and we continue on our journey. We don't get derailed by our past and our associations with them, because we send them love and then we keep moving.
Absolutely. And I found that I made a lot of mistakes in the past because I had committed to a friendship and I'm quite loyal by nature. I stayed stuck in a friendship that was not real friendship. Why? Because I noticed some people were reacting like in a very negative way to the way I thought, the way I was. For example, I used to be a journalist. I come up from a family where they've written books. They have 2 PhDs, like academy, publishing, the top academies in Europe, etc. So I don't overestimate the intellectual path. And there was somebody who was not an intellectual, a friend, who was telling me, you have to read the media. You have to know. And I said, no, I worked in PR. I started with 5 print media in the morning, and I was a basket case. Literally, I realized that. And I didn't want to do it. And then I had segments on TV that I had to watch. At the end of the day, I didn't trust myself. I was miserable, was very depressed. And I realized that I'd lost every positivity, every creativity, every self-respect, because I was not good enough, basically. So I noticed a very serious effect. And one day when I started my yogic path, I said, no more. Call me whatever you want. You think I'm illiterate because I was a journalist, so you weren't. But anyway, it came to a point where even hearing my mantra, she was like all freaked out. And I thought, okay, I bless you on your path and I will let you go. Yeah, it is sad to let go of a friend or a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whatever it is, right? We suffer when we change, but that's because we have preconceived ideas of how we should live. The yogis don't do that. They're not cruel. They just leave it like, okay, move on. Give it, leave it. They go to a mountaintop, but they go to a forest. Okay, they are the extreme. But we should be able to do that too. My teacher says, just because I'm going to, I don't know, London tomorrow and I have a ticket, it doesn't mean that I will go. Sometimes on the way to the airport, he's guided and he doesn't go, and it turns out the flight is delayed 5 hours, or worse, there's been an accident. So we need to start paying attention within to what we really want to go do and where we want to go with our lives. We need to regain our sovereignty. Everything conspires to make us feel less, and that we need to listen to these other inputs or guidelines. How about we start from within again and we trust ourselves blindly? The job is toxic. Don't go back. You'll find a way. I always have. Every time I was courageous and said no more. So I found better and better. Now it's the best. And I'm sure they could be even better than this. So don't go. Like, for example, my teacher, Dr. Pillai, once was driving a car and Ganesha told him, stop the car. He cannot drive because he goes into older states. He meditates and he talks to all these beings. Of course, he's been doing that since he was 7. It's not that he neglected the world. He got 2 masters and a PhD. So he was doing also the things of the world, but he did them in a way that spiritual people do. He didn't take seriously the silly things like reading Moby Dick. That takes you what, a month or 2. He doesn't waste his time. Okay, so Ganesha said, stop the car. And the driver was leaving the garage. So the car was halfway through into the driveway, and a car went by that must have gone like 80 or 85 miles per hour, really fast, or even more. There are crazy people and every once in a while. So, and then when he came to this, to the event where I was attending, he said, today was my death day. And Ganesha said, stop the car so you won't get in trouble. You won't die there. So we are guided. Why don't we hear it? Because we think it's a nonsense, that we think that it's not possible. So we need to go within and trust our intuition, which is very powerful. And I've always been guided by my intuition. Like when I was 20, my parents wanted me to get married when I was 18. And it was, of course, the son of a billionaire. Most parents would say, are you crazy? Just marry the guy and be done. So he was like 3 years older than I, and he was a womanizer. And I was already depressed. I started to doubt myself, feel old at 18. Like, he was looking at all the pretty girls everywhere. And then I said, no, I don't want that. I was feeling very depressed and I lost weight and I was so insecure. So I said no. And then I started working. I went to university, but I also started working. And I had to find a job very fast because my parents said, you cannot live in our apartment anymore. They had an apartment, a condo in Rome, and they lived in Bergamo, north of Italy. And I said, no, you have to get out now. Okay, you don't want to get married? Fine. And I said, fine. So I had to find a job right away. I was still at university. And I went to this interview and I said abruptly, you have to hire me. And they said, excuse us, excuse me. I said, yes, you have to hire me because I already have a house here in Rome. So I need this job and I'll be very good. And also, I don't even have to transfer. It made no sense. It was a non sequitur, I think I wrote in one of my books. And they hired me and they told me later for that. And I thought, it was a real estate agency, but it was like all luxury condos. So I liked the idea. And I started working there because something told me, just say this. It was a little abrupt, perhaps rude, but I did it because I was prompted. I knew better. I've been taught some manners to wait until the other person is finished. But no, something came over me that I had to say it. And that's why I got the job. And it was very well paid. It was really awesome. So we need to listen. We need to listen and not be impulsive like crazy. I don't mean that. But more rebellious, like the yogis, and more sovereign. We shouldn't just accept. My children use the word sheeples. We shouldn't be sheeples. They're right.
And yeah, I agree with you. And I was wondering, with that, following your intuition and following the things that you're told to say, I've been feeling and I've been witnessing it, that a lot of people are feeling the urge to, in COVID, we all moved our entire lives online and we're very influenced by whatever the energy is in this make-believe world, which we call the internet, this other reality that we all live in. And I've noticed recently that a lot of people are spending a lot more time offline contemplating how to reestablish themselves in the physical world where they need to learn to connect to people face to face again. In your visioning of this year going forward, did you see any signs of how communication between people and interpersonal relationships is moving in terms of that sort of thing?
Actually, the opposite. So as we begin to trust ourselves, we realize that we can have fantastic relationships just by being more authentic and using the tools and the changes in technology. And it doesn't really matter. Yes, so time in nature and in introspection and meditation. Meditation should not be mundane. I know a lot of people don't like this, but I'll give you a quick example. So feeling good, feel good affirmations, if you're stressed, those are okay. But if you're trying to manifest a house, you cannot just sit and hope, oh, now I feel better. You tell yourself a couple of affirmations. I am enough. I am fantastic. I will have a house. You actually may want to use some sounds like Shrim Brasi. Shrim is what the yogis call bija. Bija means seed. So it's a seed you're putting. There's no difference between those sounds and wealth itself. So the sounds, the vibrations are wealth. So they literally produce it. In Brazil, it's a super sound. The sound brr is very powerful. It has so many effects, and there is science, and there are lots of studies on what happens in the brain. And also, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but at the Pillai Center, they posted on YouTube also pictures. Do you know how Dr. Emoto showed sounds or thought forms or even written words of what they did to water? So think how powerful these sounds can be. Shrim Brasi created beautiful crystals, like magnificent. And somebody wanted to do the experiment. So he took this water, he sent it to the Emoto Institute. And the picture that came out were magnificent. So it's a very high vibration, and it's all about vibrations and frequencies. What's the difference between the 3D, the third dimension, and the fifth dimension, or sixth dimension even? It's all about frequencies. And we cannot see these higher beings because they vibrate so fast. And the voice of that goddess I heard during the night had a little static because of the difference in frequencies. The voice was feminine, benevolent, but also very strong. I've never experienced that sovereignty. Now I know what Shakti is. Shakti is the divine feminine and the power of the divine feminine. For the Vedas and the yogis in ancient civilization, the real power was feminine because the gods, the male aspect is inert until the Shakti intervenes. So all the male gods, call them Deva, the shining beings, have a feminine counterpart either within or without, so outside. So they have a consort, they have a wife, etc. So that explains the divine design. That the feminine is very powerful. Why? It's loving, there's beauty, it's relational, it's protective and very powerful in protecting, and also very compassionate, and that's the highest intelligence.
Beautiful.
So,
is there anything else that you would like to highlight that is something that you would like to see come forward as important for people who are listening as we wrap up our time together today?
Yeah, so don't dismiss your material goals. They are there because they need to manifest. They want to manifest. Literally, God doesn't want you poor. It's been a lie. So I always like to talk about what we misunderstood in the past. So we are just coming out of a very dark time called Kali Yuga, and the yogis predicted that we will lose our consciousness, we will forget everything, we will need so much guidance, etc. So in Aramaic, for example, that's just 2,000 years ago, the language of Jesus. I am a Jesus follower, but I'm not so Catholic anymore, or Christian. So I don't follow all the dogma or doctrine, etc. But I love Jesus and his teaching, especially the original teachings that were in Aramaic. So when he said, be blessed ye poor, he actually meant to be rich. Because in Aramaic, the word that we translated poor means rich. Or actually be blessed. Blessed actually was wealthy. So he was blessing them, become wealthy, ye poor, and my Father will give you to the end of the earth. It's not a literal quotation. I don't remember the entire quote, biblical quote. But literally, Jesus wanted us to be wealthy. So he didn't say that's the only path. Yes, it meant leave all your ego, your attachments to nonsense. I don't know, at that time what it was, maybe alcohol or, I don't know, promiscuity. I don't know, there are so many ways that we can lose our path. Wasting time and wasting an incarnation. So Jesus was saying that, but he never said that the poor should be poor because that's the only way. Yes, of course. There are people who are still on their deathbed thinking about making more money. That's delusion, right? And maybe they're already billionaires. They're leaving everything behind because the body is going to be wasted. But they're still thinking about, they have obsessions. Okay, so that is nonsense. Of course, you don't go into the higher realms with that thought form. Maybe they get stuck in between and they'll stay on the earth plane trying to be close to their money because they can't take it. So I'm not judging, but if you want to make something great out of your incarnation, you cannot get stuck on anything. You just have to be very fluid and understand right now, this is the need of the day and this is what I want to manifest, and just go ahead and do it. And as AI shows you, there should be no time, should be instantaneous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And waiting, maybe you want to tweak and change your goal a little around.
Yeah. One of the things that I have noticed is that just since the beginning of the year itself, I've noticed that if I pose a question to the subconscious mind, that it will resolve it instantaneously overnight. Whereas perhaps previously you needed to go and do a lot of work and manual, laborious things to work through that. But if you believe in the power of the messages that you intuitively are shown, and then do the work with the mantras and then work with the deities, then they work with your subconscious mind, like Ganesh said, to remove the blocks. And when you get that infinite loop between the superconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious mind, you resolve and heal anything that was
Very fast.
fast. Yeah, really fast.
So it works better now. Have you noticed how the mantras are more powerful now with the higher frequencies on this earth plane?
Yes.
Because the galaxy itself has changed, and the planets have changed. They're vibrating faster, and they're more luminous, and everything is shifting, and the sun is in a different place, and at least we are moving towards a different area of the galaxy. And there's a lot actually you can find online about that. Some people are saying the sun is not rising where it's supposed to rise, it's more north. Same with the moon. And so definitely we're moving. We're noticing a lot of differences. And that means that we're also changing. Is it the reversal of the poles? I don't know. But definitely we're changing, we're shifting. Everything is more powerful now, every thought. In one thought, you can destroy your day. Like I've noticed, if I remember something I don't like from my past, it puts me in a state of desperation very quickly. So immediately I have to work on that. Immediately I can use a mantra and it works super fast. And I'm not chanting as long as I used to, because it works much faster now. Even 3 times, a repetition of 3 times, because you're shifting your intention. You have had the experience that it works. So you don't have to work so hard on your brain or on the neurons all over the body. Quickly, you feel the vibrations of the mantra all over your DNA, or not literally, but you feel the energy changing, and or in your cells and the blood.
That's a really interesting point too, because traditionally, historically in humanity, we've used aids like mala beads or rosary beads, and we have believed that we've had to chant them.
Mantras. This is a new mantra.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a new mantra for a goddess. Yeah.
We've believed that we've had to chant them 108 times. So that's really interesting how that also correlates to you saying.
It does work. Sorry, it is powerful to do that 108 times because it's the sacredness of the number.
Yeah.
Like as Tesla said, numbers are speaking of the cosmos. So 369, very powerful. 333, it's been hijacked by some strange organizations, but those numbers are power numbers. So 333 is connected with the divine feminine, that some organizations have used it for their own codes and symbols, etc. Something I don't know, I don't want to look into it, but I know these are very powerful numbers, but 108 is very powerful. And it's connected with the distance between the sun and the moon and the earth, sorry, the sun and the earth, and the moon and the earth. So that harmonic, it's a very harmonious relationship, and it equals to something like 108. I forget if it's the diameter of the sun with the moon. I don't remember how to calculate it, but the number is sacred because it's harmonious and it brings cosmic energy to restore harmony. So that's very important because we are all water and frequencies, right? And also thought forms, because it's really our consciousness. We don't even exist. I know we panic when we think that we don't exist, but we are imagining. There's so much space between ourselves. And so we have a lot of power.
So to clarify, 108 is still a sacred amount of times to chant mantras, but perhaps if you're noticing thoughts that are surrounding you and thought forms that are surrounding you, you want to change your frequency and vibration immediately, then what you're saying is because time is quickening, we can do 3 or 4 chants and we can change things much faster.
Absolutely. So you'll see that what took you an hour to return to a state of positivity and creativity, etc., now will take 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because your understanding has changed, and your relationship to the cosmos has changed, and perhaps to the divine. But slowly we're losing that duality, that we understand we are the divine. For example, it used to be so weird for me to imagine myself as a goddess back then. And now I see everybody, women now actually feel sovereign and they feel like goddesses. So I like to empower always my students and clients. It's not about me. It's not I'm the goddess and you're nothing. It's the other way around. We are all gods and goddesses. And the more you see it that way, the quicker you'll manifest. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful.
We're not finite at all. We're infinite, zero limits, literally true. No limit.
And Lalitha,
No identity.
No identity. Yeah. Infinite
Identity is a
beings.
big deal. Yeah. Most
Yeah.
people are like, okay, I'm an author, I am a podcaster, I am a doctor. And it's very hard to get out of it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
attached to my books. Now there's going to be the 7th in Italy, then the 8th. So you get attached to our creativity. They're like our babies. In Vedic astrology, creativity is in the same house as having children. So yes, we get attached, we love it, but also there's so much more we can do.
And Lalitha, what is on the cards for you this year in terms of writing? Have you got any more writing projects that you are undertaking, or?
My focus is on the Italian books right now. So it's a return to my mother tongue. And going back to Italy, there'll be a book signing and maybe a book tour. I'm not sure, but definitely some fairs. So I'm excited about that because it's a shift from, I've done all my work in English, even studying the Vedas, the scriptures, the Yoga Sutras, the Vajish, studying all these fantastic sages in their language, especially Vedic astrology. There's a lot of classics. So now I want to make a shift and to see what happens in Italy, because a lot of people are asking me, what do I do? How do I shift from here to there? And we need help. Yes, we're sovereign and powerful, but we are being pulled to every direction, right? Going back to some wisdom that is tested is very important. So watch the movie Zero Limits or read. Don't spend an entire day reading, because that can be very tiring and also wastes a lot of time. But you can have a book, for example, now I read diagonally. When my mother told me, say 30 years ago, I was like, oh no, I don't read diagonally like journalists, because they have entire books, and at that time the research was so much. So they read from left to diagonally the other way, and then they extrapolate something. You cannot spend a whole day on a book this thick. I know that it's probably counterproductive for me because I write books, but you can have them and you don't need to read them all. Put them under your pillow. Yogananda used to say, put it on your head and the information will come. Put it on your third eye. So read. Also, there's a secret I want to tell your audience. Read the page that is the number 8. 8 or 17, 1 plus 7, to 26, 2 plus 6. So that number, that page will contain more wisdom, more of the content, most important content of the book. That's what the yogis do.
Okay, very interesting. We'll put that to the test.
I've tested it for years, and it's actually true. I noticed that in those pages, I had really what I needed. It sounds like a Merlin, a magician. No, it's literally true, because our consciousness is infinite, and we have codes. And information is downloaded all the time. It depends on where we're putting our attention.
Okay.
But we shouldn't waste our day anymore. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today. And I will link in the show notes how people can contact you, and they can go to your website and find all the information about you. And we look forward to seeing your travels and interactions with the people of Italy this year.
Thank you. I'm excited. Thank you, Katisha. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Lil.
Talking with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.